I thought the first half of it was very lively. I did think that, as I pointed out during the debate, Anderson, I thought there were times when it got a little too bickering and petty instead of talking about what really matters for the country. We're not going to get kids health care or do anything about New Orleans by this little petty bickering.
It was, I mean, you said petty bickering, intensely personal exchanges at times. Did that surprise you?
A little. You expect serious engagement on substantive issues among Democrats. I mean, we have differences. I pointed out numerous times tonight that I think my health care plan is universal. Senator Obama's is not. We have differences on some other substantive issues that are important. We talked about Iraq tonight. Talked about the influence of money in politics. But I thought there were moments when it got very sort of in the ditch, particularly between the two of them.
It's difficult at times for you. Obviously, they have done better in some of the earlier races. How important, you've had a disappointing finish in Nevada. How important is South Carolina for you now?
Well, I mean, I got my butt kicked in Nevada, and now I'm here. I picked myself up, dusted myself off. It's not the first time I've been knocked down in my life, Anderson, and I'm back up fighting. I'm fighting not for me, but for all these people that I'm trying to give voice to. And the cause hasn't changed. It hasn't gone away. I mean, the reality of the race is I'm running against two celebrity candidates who've raised over $100 million each. I am the underdog, I admit that, but I'm a serious underdog. I'm getting delegates, I'm competing. I think anybody who came to this debate with an open mind, I would expect I did very well with. It's really important for primary voters in South Carolina and all the other subsequent primaries to understand they're not just voting in a primary. They're voting to establish what we're going to be doing next November and who our candidate will be next November. And it's becoming increasingly likely, I think, that John McCain is going to be the Republican candidate. Now, here's what we have to be thinking about. Who will be tough enough and strong enough, and who can compete against John McCain in every place in America? I believe that I won't just be here campaigning in the South Carolina primary. When I'm the Democratic nominee, I'll be back in South Carolina campaigning in the general election. And we can't concede places like South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Missouri, all these places around America where we know, everyone knows, that we always do well. All three of us have been through this. We always do well in Chicago or New York or Los Angeles, Seattle. We do well in the big urban areas. The question is, are we competitive in the rural areas, in the tougher places for Democrats to compete? And the only thing I would say, and I think it has nothing to do with race and gender, let me be really clear about that. It's amazing now that being the white male is
feeling all defensive about it. John, it's all right, man.
Is different. What I was going to say though is being able to go everywhere in America and campaign and to compete. And I grew up in the rural South, in small towns all across the rural South. And I think I can go everywhere and compete head-to-head with John McCain. And actually, the last time I saw one of your polls that had all three of us against John McCain, I was the one that beat John McCain everywhere in America. And I think we need to be able to have a candidate when people are voting. It's not the only consideration. Lord knows if you don't agree with what we stand for, and you don't believe in us as our character and our ability to lead this country, you should not vote for us no matter what it means for the general election. But if you believe in our passion, our strength, our toughness, our independence from these special interests — I've never taken any money from a Washington lobbyist or a special interest PAC, which is different than these two guys over our whole career. But what I would say is that I think what that means is I can go anywhere in America and compete against John McCain and win.
Senator Obama, appreciating what you said about the media's preoccupation with race, there is one, right? The Nobel Prize-winning African-American author Toni Morrison famously observed about Bill Clinton, quote, "This is our first black president, blacker than any actual black person who could ever be elected in our children's lifetime." Do you think Bill Clinton was our first black president?
Well, I think Bill Clinton did have an enormous affinity with the African American community, and still does. And I think that's well earned. You know, like John, one of the things that I'm always inspired by, this I'm serious about. I'm always inspired by young men and women who grew up in the South when segregation was still taking place, when you know, the transformations that are still incomplete but at least have begun had not yet begun. And to see that transformation in their own lives, I think that is powerful. And it is hopeful because what it indicates is that people can change. And each successive generation can create a different vision of how we have to treat each other. And I think Bill Clinton embodies that. I think he deserves credit for that. Now, I haven't, I have to say that, I would have to, investigate more, Bill's dancing abilities and, some of this other stuff before I accurately judged whether he was in fact a brother. But
let's let Senator Clinton weigh in on that.
I'm sure that can be arranged. I want to echo what Barack has said and what each of us has said repeatedly over the last days. This campaign is obviously an incredible opportunity for so many people to become involved, to be part of making history. You've got a son of the South, you've got an African American, you have a woman. What better way to celebrate the legacy of Dr. King?
I was an associate at a law firm that represented a church group that had partnered with this individual to do a project, and I did about 5 hours worth of work on this joint project. That's what she's referring to. Now, it's fine for her to throw that out. But the larger reason that I think this debate is important is because we do have to trust our leaders and what they say. That is important, because if we can't, then we're not going to be able to mobilize the American people behind bringing about changes in health care reform, bringing about changes in how we're going to put people back to work, changing our trade laws, and consistency matters. Truthfulness during campaigns makes a difference. And that's what I try to do, and I will continue to try to do as President of the United States.
I said very clearly I regretted voting for it, and I was happy that it didn't get into law. By 2005, there was another run at a bankruptcy reform motivated by the credit card companies and the other big lenders. I opposed that bill. I said very forcefully I opposed that bill. There was a particular amendment that I think is very telling. It was an amendment to prohibit credit card companies from charging more than 30% interest. Senator Obama voted for it. I voted against it. It was one of the biggest lobbyist victories on that very bad bill that the bankruptcy bill represented.
Thank you.
And I think it's important, if you look at the recent article about Senator Obama's work on health care reform in the Illinois legislature, it's a very interesting piece about how he basically did the bidding of the insurance companies during that effort. Now, I'm just saying that if we're going to be hurling these charges against one another, I'm used to taking the incoming fire. I've taken it for 16 years. But when you get into this arena, you can't expect to have a hands-off attitude about your record. And it is perfectly fair to have comparisons and contrasts. I voted against a 30%, I voted for limiting to 30% what credit card companies could charge. Right. Senator Obama did not.
Senator Obama, 30 seconds, please.
Absolutely. It is a fact because I thought 30% potentially was too high of a ceiling. So we had had no hearings on that bill. It had not gone through the banking committee. I don't know about a lot of folks here. Most folks here, if they've got a credit card, are paying 29%, so under this provision, that would have been fine. And we had not created the kind of serious...
You voted against it because the limit was too high? Is that what you just said?
That is exactly what I just said, John.
So there's no limit at all?
There had been no discussion. Hold on, John. No, look, listen to this. There had been no discussion about how we were going to structure this, and this was something that had not gone through the committee, and we hadn't talked about. It didn't make sense for us to cap
So you
a
voted
interest
with
rate.
the credit card companies.
No,
That's the bottom
Hillary,
line.
I opposed that bill, and you know I did.
Well,
and consistently did, and unlike you and John who voted for it previously. But here's the point. What we have to do is we've got to have consistency in how we vote. You can't say one thing during the campaign trail and then apologize afterward and say it was a mistake. And that has repeatedly happened during the course of this campaign. And I think that tells you the kind of president that folks are going to be.